Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out Let's Talk About American Social Etiquette.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to social etiquette.
Wonder what he means exactly. What's social etiquette? What's he talking about? How's it different? Maybe we're less polite than the British? Or louder? Or...
It's fair to say that our two nations utilize completely different social conventions, something I was reminded about by one of my patrons who
Completely
messaged
different?
me this.
I saw a somewhat viral post where in certain northern European nations people have experienced being at a friend's house and their family would have dinner, but while their friend would go eat, they themselves were not even asked to join. So my question is, how do Brits handle feeding visitors to their homes?
Wait. So this guy went to a friend's house and the family of his friend ate, but he was not invited to eat along with them? So he just sat there and watched them eat? How awkward and uncomfortable. That's not normal, right? At least offer, right? Are you hungry? Have you eaten? Come on, have some chili. Okay. That's not what people do. I refuse to believe that that is the norm.
The first thing that we say to guests is, sorry for the mess, even amid a completely pristine house.
After that, I've definitely been to UK houses where I was invited to eat with the household and others where I was not, and I must say, I was always fine with being left out, unless they cruelly dangled before me a plate of sausage rolls, or pork pies, or a Sunday roast. I've just realised I was never fine with this. I think Americans are just more predisposed toward hospitality.
I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that if I went to Britain and then someone invited me to their house and their family happened to be eating while I was there, that they would not invite me to eat along? Is that real? That can't be. I refuse to believe that. No, that wouldn't happen.
I think Americans are just more predisposed toward hospitality.
And this is helped by the fact that fridges are often packed with leftovers, so there's just more to go around. On top of this, Americans just place more emphasis on things like family get-togethers.
This is often coupled with an open house mentality, meaning that anyone from family siblings to my wife's cousin's ex-boyfriend Braden might also help himself to a third plate of chicken wings. In fact, he did. At such gatherings, I've often heard Americans say something along the lines of, "There's coffee in the pot, knock yourself out." And while that last phrase isn't meant to be taken literally, I think people underestimate how much coffee I'm willing to drink, which brings us on to this.
Hang on. This can't be right. Maybe that's just Lawrence's experience. He says American fridges are full of mine's not. Well, actually, my fridge, I wouldn't say my fridge is packed with leftovers, but there's a couple meals worth of stuff in there. If you have company to your home while you're having a meal, don't you want that? Like, how? I'm flabbergasted. I can't believe this. I don't believe this is true. I can't believe it.
It's been observed by several experts, but also BuzzFeed, that Americans associate having a catch-up with consuming caffeine. And it's true. You'll often hear phrases like, "Wanna talk about this over coffee?"
Yeah.
Of course, you might think that the British equivalent of this would somehow involve tea, but the more likely candidate from experience is beer. However, Americans have a much different relationship with alcohol, which serves less as a vehicle for casual afternoon chatter and more as an evening social lubricant every now and then. The concept of meeting for coffee fits America's relationship with coffee, which is consumed among Americans at 1.5 times the per capita rate of British people. In contrast to alcohol, coffee helps kick the brain into action, leading to livelier conversations as it stimulates those in attendance.
Yeah. Having coffee with someone is a good way to dip your toe into dating or just kind of getting to know someone for whatever purposes. But I guess in Britain you would have a beer. If I have a beer in the middle of the day, I'm kind of done for the rest of the day, and I spend the rest of the day trying to drink enough water to counteract the dehydration from the beer, although day drinking is fun.
And while coffee houses and chains are gradually becoming more popular in Britain, they've still got a way to go to catch up with the selection offered up in America, not to mention the coffee sizes.
But tea,
I've often heard
Right?
that America, despite its association with wealth and material possessions, doesn't like to talk about money.
In fact, this was backed up in recent studies that found Americans would sooner fill their conversations with topics such as relationships, mental health, race, sex, and politics than with details about their earnings.
Yeah, money's not fun to talk about. It just makes everybody sad and it gets competitive. And you compare your own income to your friends and you're like, damn, I wish I had that. And it kind of creates envy. But he's saying that in Britain you do? I don't believe that. I think he's out of touch. I think he's been in America too long. I don't know. Maybe not.
It's been a while for me, but I'm not sure this was altogether different in Britain. For instance, I never knew how
okay.
much my British family members were making.
Additionally, there was even a time when I myself felt uncomfortable asking people to support Lost in the Pond on Patreon, which you can do at patreon.com/lostinthepond.
But it's possible that discomfort around money is even more intense in America, simply because the nation is home to a drastic gap between the rich and poor.
Discussing one's income has the potential to make those with less feel bad, whether it is they who are doing the talking or the listening. For this reason and a variety of others, I very rarely had discussions with Americans that revealed either party's financial worth.
That's interesting. So he's saying the reason for that is because in America there's a wider gap between rich and poor. Makes sense. Okay, I'm following you, Lawrence.
But Americans do talk. The suggestion has often been that they talk too much and certainly a few decibels above everybody else.
But I'm not entirely convinced that this is always true or particularly unique to Americans. In Britain, I had plenty of loud friends, something that became particularly apparent after those beers.
And even I might become loud and undignified if I win Vlogger of the Year at the 2022 Blogosphere Awards.
Yeah, I've seen enough British memes to know that British people get loud too, y'all. We're not the only ones. And I've also learned that the British are the Americans of Europe. So when a British person goes to France, they're seen like a loud, obnoxious tourist. Just like us. We're the same. We're the same.
To make that happen, go to blogosphere.biz/awards and vote for me once you get to step 3. And don't forget to vote for those 2 Brits in the travel category. Perhaps
I have to admire his ambition and his sales tactics. We're halfway through the video, and he's already pitched his Patreon page and this awards thing.
Perhaps the stereotype persists because of how Americans present themselves abroad, or because of the often hammed-up nature of their film characters. But on the whole, I've never really found Americans to be much louder than the British. One exception to this might present itself at those family get-togethers. But these are not so widespread a feature of British life, and it's not easy to draw a comparison.
And it's not just volume, it's also the words we use. One weird criticism that often gets leveled at Americans is that they insert like between every other word.
Firstly,
Yeah.
we should keep in mind that this is a generational thing, right? I mean, it's
Right.
hard to imagine Abraham Lincoln saying 4 and 7 years ago, although it might have helped to pad out the Gettysburg Address, which was surprisingly brief. But the American use of like is often the source of derision among Brits, even though, through American influence, the phenomenon has long since caught on in Britain too.
Oh, no.
I've always thought
Oh,
of it
no.
as a hesitation marker, like and ah, an
Yeah.
interjection that acts as an antidote to a sudden uncomfortable silence.
In that sense, it's a perfectly natural occurrence within human speech. But I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Lawrence, why does it have to be the word like and not some other monosyllabic word like ah?
Well, the truth is, you could also say the same about and It's just the way English panned out, and that's all right by me.
Yeah, like makes people sound kind of dumb if you say it too much. I catch myself saying it a lot, sometimes. And when I edit these videos, I usually take it out if I can. Because, like, I just did it, see?
I've often spoken about how Americans are more direct, but deep down, how does this present itself? Well, to answer that question, I should use my own country's style of speech for comparison. British people are more likely to employ linguistic techniques that help avoid any perceived conflict.
Tag questions. That's when you make a command or a statement and conclude it with an adjoining question.
Oh.
For example, you should make sure not to burn the French fries, shouldn't you?
That "shouldn't you" at the end changes everything. It softens the imperative clause that came before it, ensuring that the speaker doesn't come off as too militant or pushy. The British specialise in tag questions, whereas Americans don't typically use them in this way at all. Instead, they might simply say, "Be sure not to burn the French fries again, Lawrence." Not that I know that from experience.
Wow, I've never heard of tag questions, but when he explains it, it does sound like a very British thing. And the word "in it," I guess that's sort of a tag question in itself, right? Bit windy, isn't it? I consider that kind of a politeness thing. But I guess that's what he's saying. It softens the blow of a command. It's like adorable.
I've heard it said, and I've noticed myself, that Americans sometimes take a long time to exit a social activity.
Now, this is not usually because they feel
What?
awkward about doing so. It's more because they have this remarkable capacity for saving their most critical family discussions for when their introvert spouse has just put on their coat. I can recall numerous times when an unannounced inter-sibling conversation added 30 minutes to our exit strategy, and all because someone brought up politics.
The British equivalent of this usually manifests not in person but over the phone, with British people saying the words yep and goodbye 47 times in succession before guiltily ending the call. Yep, goodbye, yep, goodbye, yep, goodbye.
And on that note, it's probably time for me to say my own goodbyes. I'm Lawrence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that I don't have to. Until the next video, goodbye.
Goodbye. He sounds so much like Robin Leach. I don't think that's really how he talks in normal conversation. He just does it here. Right. So what he's saying is Americans invite people to eat with them more. Americans drink coffee instead of beer. What else did I say? We don't like to talk about our income. We're loud. We say like. We don't use tag questions much. Do we? Okay. These are actually pretty useful things to know if you are a British person and you're coming to America, or if you're an American person going to Britain. You know? So now if I go to Britain and I'm at someone's house and they don't invite me to eat with them, I'll be like, yeah, this is normal. I won't be offended. I mean, I probably would be a little offended because, like, that's not cool. But, you know, I'll know it's normal at least. And I will expect to drink beer during the day. Day drinking is fun. I might talk about money a little bit. I'll be sure to talk nice and loud so everyone knows I'm an American. I'll use like a lot because, like, I want to destroy British culture. And I'll try to use tag questions so I don't offend people by commanding them to do my bidding. Well, this is good. Well, thank you all for watching this with me. Be sure to pick up a mug, buy me a coffee, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.